Many believe they suffer from SAD, or seasonal affective disorder. According to the Mayo Clinic in America, it is a type of depression that is linked to the changes of the seasons, sapping your energy, making you feel moody or just down in the colder months. But for some, depression is all year round. In fact, it's estimated as many as 1 in 6 Kiwis will experience a major depressive disorder at some point in their life. But researchers say we don't have a complete picture, because the last national prevalence study was 2 decades ago, and it's believed there is a hidden chunk of the population silently enduring depression. We know depression rates are rising, and just what is causing the increase, it's not easy to untangle. I'm not the expert, of course. One man, though, might be able to enlighten us. Dr. Dougal Sutherland is a clinical psychologist, and he is with us now on the platform. Dougal, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Well, I'm feeling good today. I'm good. Thank you for asking.
Good. Yeah, great.
I want to start off, though, with depression. It can manifest in many ways, can it not?
It can. I mean, the key features are kind of threefold, really. You feel sad, that's stereotypical, or you may have just lost your sense of enjoyment about life in general, like everything just feels blah. And you know, you might not say I'm feeling a deep sort of depression, but everything is like the world has lost its flavour and its colour. The other thing, and the other way, particularly for men, not solely, is that it can manifest itself as real anger and irritability, I guess, for want of a better term, really being angry all the time or irritable all the time, which is probably just the flip side of how men sometimes display sadness.
Okay. Is it chemical? Was it asking? Is it a chemical imbalance in the brain, or is it more complex as well?
Well, that's kind of one of the myths I think that we hear a lot of. It's like, oh well, it's because there's I haven't got enough serotonin or dopamine in my brain, and therefore I'm depressed. And that it's easy to understand why people think that, because often the medications used to treat depression involve putting more serotonin into your brain, or having it more serotonin available. So the logic goes, oh well, that means I mustn't have enough serotonin. But there was a pretty major study last year that found actually there's no real differences in amount of serotonin in the brains of people who are depressed versus people who aren't depressed. So it can't really be, as far as we can tell, simply a chemical imbalance. So that is a common myth, that it's just some brain chemistry thing. And of course, brain chemistry is involved, but it's not as simple as that sort of cause and effect.
According to the Mental Health Foundation, rates of diagnosed depression have gone up about 15% in the adult male population to about 25%, but that figure's from 2012, and then from 10 to 12 in women. Do you have any idea why you think we are seeing greater numbers?
Well, I think particularly in guys, not solely, but particularly in guys, I think men are just more willing to kind of own it now. All the great work of John Kerwin and Mike King have I think really helped. That's certainly my experience talking to people as well. It's seen as people aren't sort of leaping up to tell you they're depressed, but they're much more willing to talk about it if they are than they used to be. In the old days it was just sort of harden up and take a concrete pill and get over it and don't tell anybody. So I think people are definitely much more willing to talk about it. So they come forward more, so that it appears more, and they're more okay about saying that they have it. So I think that accounts for some of it, at least. And more recently, I think, things like COVID and all the stresses that we've had, there's lots of kind of environmental things that push us into lower moods. We're in the middle of an economic decline, and that can have a pretty big impact on how you're feeling. So I think there's lots of those things are happening around us as well that could account for some of it.
Yeah, because I was actually going to ask you about that, because I'm of an age where I remember very well it was, harden up, take a concrete pill. Yep. I mean, that was really big and when I was growing up. But do you, and I think guys probably might have a harder time talking about it, and I do agree that the likes of John Kerwin, who, gosh, I've had quite a few interviews with him, and the guy is amazing. And, of course, Mike King. Well, Mike King himself fights with depression, and he's gone through some hard times. So do you still think there is maybe in some circles still a little bit of a stigma around it?
Yeah, definitely. I've talked to organisations today even where they were saying, some of the guys here are still a bit iffy about talking about that kind of stuff. It's often male-dominated areas. Maybe where there's a good proportion of the workforce is kind of over 40, and I think some of that is just. If it's really hard to do, if you haven't grown up talking about emotions and how things are going for you, it's kind of hard to start when you're 40 or 50, and because you just haven't done it, and you've never had anybody kind of model it for you, and so I think it is hard. It's not impossible at all, but it is hard, and I think there still is that in some sectors at least that stigma around. It might mean you're kind of like broken or a bit mental or something. We still come across it.
What I mean, I think most of us. I mean, I could be. I'm hazarding a guess here, but I'd say nearly all of us at some stage in our lives have felt a little down. A bit blue. Whether it's because you've lost someone close to you, or whatever the highs and lows of life. How do you know that it's depression, or you're just having a bit of a hard time for a while?
Yeah. It's interesting, because in some ways it's useful to distinguish between people who are what we might say clinically depressed and people who are just a bit down. Yeah. And in other ways, it doesn't kind of matter in some ways. But I think it's a good question, and people often ask that. So if we're looking for clinical depression, that's sort of where you might make a diagnosis. You need one of those things that we talked about earlier, feeling depressed, feeling, the enjoyment has gone out of life, or feeling angry all the time. And then you need some other symptoms as well. So you need things like, something's wrong with your sleep. You might have some pretty unhelpful thoughts about harming yourself. You might have some physical symptoms. You might have really strong sense of thoughts of being really worthless or useless. And some of those are kind of, what degree or what level do I have them? And when we're talking about clinical depression, you're saying like those are sort of up at the maximum level. They're kind of 10 out of 10. You're having those thoughts, and all of us probably have those at some stage. It's having a depressed mood or feeling sad all the time, plus a whole bunch of other symptoms. So it's not just feeling a bit blah. It starts to affect almost all aspects of your life.
Can I ask about the kids? Because, a lot of emphasis on mental health nowadays is aimed at young people. And stats say the number of young people mentally distressed is approaching 25%, and it's nearly doubled in a decade. So we definitely have some very concerning trends here. I mean, again, I go back to when I was at school, and we had tough times, but I wonder why we're seeing so many depressed children nowadays.
Yeah, look, I don't think there is an easy answer to that. It would be great if I knew, because then we could do something to solve it. It's like, I've got the silver bullet.